May it please the court. There is no question that what happened the early morning of September 25th is an absolute tragedy. There is no question that all of us are in this courtroom today to make sure that justice is served. But now that all the facts have been laid before you, it's pretty clear that what happened in those wee morning hours was an accident, not a first-degree murder. Now, earlier that evening, Danny Dawson met up with some friends at a bar. It was one of her friend's 21st birthday, and they were all looking to have a good time. She was looking forward to seeing her favorite band and catching up with a classmate of hers, and also meeting somebody new who she might go to law school with in the future. They sat down, they had some dinner, they had some drinks. You heard Danny Dawson tell you that she didn't have that much. And Taylor Hobson said she might have had 5 or 6 drinks. Slowly, as Taylor and Vanessa got drunker over the course of the evening, Miss Dawson realized that she might have to drive them home. As soon as Miss Dawson realized this, she switched to soda. And they continued to have a good time, watch the band, and chat, until around 1 in the morning when she learned that they had to leave because Miss Sullivan had a curfew. So, being a good friend, she offered to take the 2 drunk girls home. She spoke with the bartender on her way out. The bartender didn't stop her. The bartender didn't think she was too drunk to drive. She spoke with a cab driver, the same cab driver that she typically uses when she actually is too drunk to drive. The cab driver didn't stop her because the cab driver didn't think she was too drunk to drive. Not even Miss Taylor Hobson, who took the stand and told you about how she feared for her life when Miss Dawson was behind the wheel. Not even Miss Hobson thought that Miss Dawson was too drunk to drive. As a matter of fact, Miss Hobson and Miss Sullivan both got into the car with Miss Dawson when they had a cab waiting, because neither of them expected that what happened on Canyon Road later to happen. Everything was still going all right. They were driving down the road, and Miss Sullivan mentioned that she had a curfew. So they decided to take the best way there, Canyon Road. Canyon Road is a dangerous road. As you heard both Officer Foster and our engineer, Leslie Roman, tell you, it's full of curves. There are trees running right up to the side that pose safety hazards. There aren't guardrails where there should be. Officer Foster even saw an entire family of deer in the area just last fall. Doesn't have too many safeguards to keep people like Miss Dawson and her friends protected. Not only that, but it was raining, it was pouring, and it was dark, and there were distractions inside the car. Both Miss Dawson and Miss Hobson told you about the noise in the car, the singing, the music turned up even over the pouring rain, and Miss Hobson constantly talking in the back and confusing Miss Dawson. All of a sudden, a deer runs out into the road. Miss Dawson doesn't have time to think, she just has time to react, and in order to avoid an even worse accident, she does what any of us would do. She swerves. But you heard, both from the officer and from Leslie Roman, that Miss Dawson actually managed to keep the car going around the curve for 124 feet, even after she had to swerve. Does that seem like the action of a drunk person to you? When she tried to get back on the road, she overcorrected. One of the results of her overcorrection is that she hydroplaned. And the next thing she knew, she was wrapped around a utility pole. It didn't take long for Officer Foster to get on the scene. What did we learn from Officer Foster? We learned how bad the conditions were on the road that night. So bad that as he himself was taking Miss Dawson to administer a field sobriety test, he slipped. Not only that, but we also heard that the officer had seen the car that they were in driving earlier, didn't think that it posed any danger to anyone on the road, didn't stop it. The officer tried to tell you that the car was speeding at 66 miles an hour, but our own expert, Leslie Roman, told you why the calculations that he used to come to that speed were incorrect. He used the wrong formula. And not only that, but when the officer clocked the car himself earlier in the evening, the car was going 54, closer to the engineer's estimate than to his own. Also didn't take very long for Miss Sullivan, the district attorney, to arrive on the scene and start yelling at Miss Dawson about how she was going to put her in jail forever. Wouldn't that distract you if you were trying to say your ABCs backwards? At the end of the day, the prosecution talked about a few things that they were going to have to prove to you. They have to prove, in order for you to find my client guilty of murder, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Danny Dawson was recklessly engaging in conduct manifesting an extreme indifference to human life. Once again, no one, not Danny Dawson, not Miss Hobson, could tell you that when they got in the car that night, they had any idea what would happen. As a matter of fact, what the engineer told you was that the accident occurred as a result of an evasive maneuver to avoid an animal, a deer, that ran out into the middle of the road. That's not reckless behavior. That's an accident. The prosecution's also trying to tell you that because Danny was driving under the influence, that's why the accident occurred, and that's why she was being so reckless. Who did they bring in to tell you that? They brought in the officer that conducted the standardized field sobriety test. But again, you heard about the conditions on the road that the test was being performed. You heard about how nervous and shaken up Miss Dawson was after an accident that killed one of her good friends. You also heard about the distractions that were going on in the background, the district attorney threatening to ruin her life. They also brought you Dr. Avery Smith, the alcohol expert who measured Danny Dawson's BAC that night. What did Miss Smith tell you? She told you that the BAC reading was .19. What she didn't tell you was that Miss Dawson had been observed for the amount of time necessary to ensure that there was no alcohol in her mouth when that test was being administered. She told you Mr. Foster did that. Officer Foster did that. Officer Foster didn't tell you that he did that. Only Dr. Smith can tell you that Officer Foster completed that observation period. And she said that it was essential to making sure that those test results were accurate. We brought our own expert, the president of the American Board of Forensic Toxicology, Dr. Norton, who told you that there were several problems with Dr. Smith's testing, disregarding the fact that the observation period hadn't been completed. Miss Dawson was experiencing heartburn. She in all likelihood did have alcohol in her mouth. Not only that, but the machine that was used the incorrect breath-to-blood ratio to calculate the results, meaning that Miss Dawson's BAC was much lower than what the results actually read. And on top of all of that, because Miss Dawson hadn't eaten in a while, she likely had low blood sugar, which meant that the alcohol content of her blood would be artificially raised by natural processes that didn't make her intoxicated. The prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Ms. Dawson was under the influence of alcohol when she was operating that motor vehicle. But we've given you several reasons to doubt that blood alcohol concentration reading. Dr. Smith herself told you that when Ms. Dawson was brought into the station, she didn't seem like she was above the legal limit. That's the best evidence we have to go on. We've given you reasons to doubt what the officer said about the speed and the cause of the accident. We've brought in our own professionals who have given you a reasonable alternative with better formulas. And you've heard from Ms. Dawson herself that she didn't have that much to drink tonight. The best evidence anyone in this court has given as to the number of drinks she had was 1 drink per hour. That puts her below the legal limit. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't engaging in reckless behavior. Do not put my client away for life because she didn't murder anyone. What happened that night was an accident. Find my client not guilty.
Before I begin, may I ask how much time I have?